Hey, Pastor Josh here. Thanks so much for watching our videos. If you'd like more information about Legacy City Church, you can go to legacycitychurch.com. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell below. God bless you. Genesis chapter 21, and we have been working through a series I've titled Genesis in the Beginning, God. You know, this book is all about God. It's really amazing the way that it comes together, verse by verse, chapter by chapter, and the way that it's built. It starts with God, it ends with God, and God is the one actually showing up as the hero in each situation and saving men and women from the things and situations they're getting themselves into. And the way this thing comes together is really a miracle. This book, the Bible, the word Bible just means books. Yes. There's 66 different books in this one book. Written over 1,500 years, 40 different authors, 3 different languages. We have poor men writing in this book. We have the rich writing in this book. We have everything in between. Now, the miracle of it is that if really people wrote a book on anything and then you try to put it together, there's going to be a lot of problems with it. How does it have one theme that just seems to work in these stories that seems to seamlessly connect very clearly together? If you and I wrote a book on cars, let's say, you write the first half, I'll write the second half, we're going to have some problems in our theme and the way that we look at things unless we've mapped it out like really, really, really well in order for it to be seamless. Why don't we throw in 66 different books? Let's throw in 40 different authors. Let's throw in 1,500 years of time. Let's throw in 3 different languages, and why don't we have ample amount of problems with this book? It's because it's absolutely amazing in the way it comes together. There's a miracle in the way that it comes together, and it is God's word that has come through men and women, and we have it here today. It ministers to us. God is in the beginning, God is in the end, and He is the author and finisher of this book, and He is the main character in this book. Today's message is titled, Always Show Grace. Always show grace. I heard of a story, maybe you heard it too, of a judge who was interviewing a woman regarding her pending divorce. Yes. And the judge asks her there in the courtroom, what are your grounds for divorce? Really, what are your grounds for divorce? She replied, about 4 acres and a nice little home in the middle of the property with a stream running by. He says, no, I mean, what is the foundation of this case? She says it's made of concrete, brick, and mortar. No. What are your relations like with your husband? I have an aunt and uncle living here in town, and so do my husband's parents. He says, no, please. Do you have a real grudge here in your relationship? She says, no, we have a 2-car garage and carport. Never really needed one. We would be fine. He says, please, is there any infidelity in your marriage? She says, yes. Both my son and daughter have a stereo set, and we don't necessarily like the music, but the answer to your question is yes. He says, ma'am, does your husband ever beat you up or anything like that? Yes, actually, he beats me twice a week. He gets up earlier than I do. He's always doing this. Finally, in frustration, the judge says, lady, why do you want a divorce? She says, oh, I don't want a divorce. I've never wanted a divorce. My husband does. He says he can't communicate with me. I know. I should have threw the guys under the bus. I know. I should have got the guys. But today, tucked in Genesis chapter 21, is a little story of miscommunication, misunderstanding. You would miss these little verses had you just been reading through the chapters. You wouldn't even see it. It's so nicely tucked in there in the corner of this chapter. But it's really amazing to see this miscommunication break out. And neither party fully wrong, but has the potential to create great turmoil, but then someone steps up in great maturity and grace and lets it go. And you see restoration, and you see their relationship move forward. We see this happen between Abraham and King Abimelech, 2 leaders in the land. Great war and battle could break out, but they're mature enough to work through it. And this is a problem of a lot of our relationships and a lot of our society, is that we love to misunderstand each other and we love to miscommunicate to each other. And we very seldom do these things with grace. And if we would just handle people in conversations with grace, we would get a whole lot further in our workplace, in our marriage, in our friendships. Even with our enemies, we would get a whole lot further. We would come to understandings. Half the battle is just understanding where the person is coming from. Isn't that Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends, Influence People? Half the battle is just understanding where the person is coming from. Well, they said this. I know, but what do they mean? Well, they said that. What are they actually saying? This is the heart of our text today. Do you remember last week Abraham and Sarah had their baby boy, Isaac? Finally came into the world. They've been waiting and praying. God had promised them, and they've been waiting forever. Abraham, Bible students, is how old at this point? 100 years old. He's 100. He thought he would never have his baby boy. Sarah never thought she would have her son, but God promised it, and it came through. But do you remember what happened last week? Remember Abraham had another child with Hagar, the maid? Because Sarah was kind of like, hey, we got to make something happen here, so let's do this. Well, she gets ticked off at the whole process. And in our text last week, Isaac is 3 or 4 years old. They're having a weaning process celebration, as in Jewish tradition. And we see that Ishmael, the older brother of Isaac, he's about 16 years old, this teenage boy, starts making fun of Isaac. Sarah sees it. She's like, what's this boy doing mocking my son? And she's already bitter with Hagar. There's an issue between them. So she goes to her husband Abraham and says, tell them to get out. Get your slave woman out of here. Get Ishmael out of here. We don't want him. Abraham freaks out. He's like, what am I going to do? The Lord comes to him and says, don't worry. I'm going to take care of Hagar. I'm going to take care of Ishmael. In order to create peace, you can let them go off into the desert. Remember, God showed up in the middle of the desert and pointed to a well for Hagar and gave them water to drink. He blessed them. He showed them grace. That was our story last week. The story picks up. It's been a little bit of time. We don't know how much time, but Abraham has been living in the kingdom of King Abimelech. He's been living in the land of King Abimelech, and we see a little confrontation break out in the fields. Here we are, Genesis chapter 21. We're going to start in verse 22. Can we stand for the reading of God's word? We always stand to when we read God's word here at Legacy, just to pay honor to him, to remember that it's his word we're reading and not mine, and my words can't really change you. They can't do much for you. It may motivate, encourage a little bit, but this thing will actually transform the heart and the mind. It somehow gets into the soul. You know when I'm speaking sometimes and you're like, did he read my mail this week? How does he know? I don't know. I have no idea. But the Holy Spirit of God somehow works through his word to communicate to his people, and it actually hits all of us in this place. It's ministering to me too as I'm preaching. It's an incredible thing. Genesis 21, starting in verse 22, it says, at that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me or with my descendants or with my posterity, but as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me and with the land where you have sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. Basically he says, I'll do it. Verse 25, when Abraham reproved Abimelech, or rebuked, some of your text says, about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized, Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, and I have not heard of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant. Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock apart, and Abimelech said to Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you have set apart? He said, these 7 ewe lambs you will take from my hand, that this may be a witness for me that I dug this well. Therefore, that place was called Beersheba, because there both of them swore an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this story. And hidden here in this meaning, in this text, in this context, we pray that you would reveal to us the specifics discerning our own lives. Lord, that we would be able to see your application, what you're saying in this story. What is it here for? Lord, that we would allow it and it would be able to transform even the way we think in the 21st century and the way we handle people here in Los Angeles. Please, Lord, give us wisdom now as we open your word. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. You can be seated. So Abraham is living in the land of the Philistines, King Abimelech's land, and it seems that the word is getting around more and more that the Lord is with Abraham. King Abimelech, the non-believer of his army, the general, says clearly about Abraham. Did you see this in the text? They said to Abraham, here is the king, here is his general. They look Abraham in the face and they say, God is with you in all that you do. We can see that. The only way they would know this is if someone told them, or they could actually see that in his life. This is amazing. Abraham living in the land of King Abimelech, and the general of the king and the king know that God is with Abraham. What's interesting to me is that non-believers recognize and can see God working in a believer's life. They can actually identify that. They can actually tell. They say, we see God in you. In all that you do, we see God. The bigger question that I have in this text is, for us, is do people see that in us? In our workplace, in our family, with our friends, is that your witness? Do people say, God, I see that God is with you in all that you do? Just amazing. There's clearly favor in your life. There's something going on here in your life. And I'm kind of blown away by it. Now, I'm not ready to worship your God, and I'm not ready to, submit to your Lord Jesus or whatever you call him, but it's amazing that God seems to give you favor in the things that you do. What is that? I see God in you. What an amazing testimony, huh? For someone who does not believe on God to look in you in the face and say, I see God in you. Family, we are not placed here on this earth simply to live a life for ourselves. Yes, it's okay to have fun, lives full of adventure and things that we like to do. Trust me, I am going to enjoy this playground of the earth. I'm going to have a blast. But the sole focus is not to satisfy and gratify me. It is ultimately to bring glory to God in everything that we do. You've heard it before, 1 Corinthians 10:31. Whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it for the glory of God. Notice, it's a one dial click to the right, a perspective change about why you are doing what you're doing. And if you don't have this figured out, you will very quickly start waking up in life week after week, month after month, year after year, find yourself saying, why am I doing this? What is the purpose of all of this anyways? I get up and do the same thing every day. I get up and do the same thing what am I doing? And then maybe you have a bit of purpose for why you're doing something. You want to build that business. You want to do this thing. And then you actually accomplish it and you stand on the other side and you're like, okay, I did it. Now, why am I doing this again? You see, it's a very small turn on the dial, but it is so important to get it right. Because if you don't, we will find ourselves confused. Everything we do and use and achieve must be somehow turned in our hearts and minds for the glory of God. Even building a classic car, man. Sounds like it's solely for the pleasure of the person building it. But man, I would even challenge and say, it's enjoyable to put the parts together, maybe invite a young guy over to teach him how to work on a car and fellowship with him and pour into him. And then, hey, when you're cruising down PCH and somebody walks up and sees it, man, that thing is sick, man. How'd you do? I put it together this way. And you're kind to them and hospitable and generous. And hey, you want to sit, you want to check it out, and you're not like greedy hand. Hey, get off the paint, bud. Get off the paint. You're being kind and warm and then you invite them to church, or you bless them in some way and try to turn our scenarios for God's glory. We have to be thinking this way, or we will very naturally build in the wrong direction. And you'll find yourself sick. Because we're not made to receive glory. God is made to receive glory. God is the one who receives glory. Glory makes us sick. We can only take so much. The cup gets full and then we start going crazy. Matthew 5:16 says, "Let your light so shine before men and women that they would see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven." It was clear that God was with Abraham and the world knew it. And I hope that would be the testimony of our church. Say, oh, you go to Legacy, oh, I know, God's with those people, man. Like, he's for sure there. And I'm not ready to get close to God and stuff, so that's why I'm not going, but I know that he's over there. Like when I drive down Laurel Canyon, I even just I get, kind of nervous sometimes. I just found out, my wife shared with me this last week, that Laurel Canyon, it's this trip that we're here right now, that Laurel Canyon, these hills here, some of the most mysterious, darkest scenarios have happened right here in the past, whatever it's been, 50, 60, 70 years. Right here is one of the darkest areas in America. Murder mysteries and all these things that have happened here in the hills, and I'm thinking, how in the world did we get on Laurel Canyon and Ventura Boulevard? I didn't put a pin on the map and say, we're going to get in right there. Never tried. We just knocked on 70 doors in LA and everybody said no and this one said yes, and that's how we're here. But I think we get to redeem this street. And I hope that it would be said about this area and this place even 10, 20 years from now, that Studio City that the radius here in this would be different because of the way that we live. God is with those people. He gives favor and he takes care of them. He protects them. He works through them. They have this supernatural ability to see through the fog and the darkness of our city and keep loving and serving and be gracious to people. Something different about them. God was with Abraham so much that it actually struck fear into the heart of the king and his general. They said, we know God's with you. And they're scared. And so they're like, let's make a peace treaty. Are we cool? Is everything okay? Please. I know that you kind of got the creator of the universe behind you, so can we make a deal here? And you see at the end of the text, Abraham says, I swear, I won't harm you. Now, when we think of Abraham, we think of this 100-year-old dude, right? He's got his cloak on, he's got his staff, and he tells his sheep where to go. He's kind of like a Yoda, but the force, right, is behind him, right? God, the Almighty, is behind this man. Far greater than the force, the Almighty God, creator of the universe, is behind him. And King Abimelech, the ruler of the whole land, says, I see God in you. And the general says, hey, King, I want to advise you real quick. Don't mess with that guy, okay? He has God with him. So let's make a peace treaty with him, make sure everything's cool. If God is for us, who can ultimately be against us? No one can stand against the Almighty. And it is not us fighting these battles, it's God fighting the battles for us. Psalm 27 verse 1, David writes this, the Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? When evildoers assail me to eat up my flesh, my adversaries and foes, it is they who stumble and fall. Though an army is encamped against me, my heart will not fear. Though war arises against me, yet I will be confident. It's David gearing up for battle, going to face Goliath. Remember, King Saul's like, dude, put your armor on. I got you the best stuff. Look at the gold-plated armor. He's like, I don't need your junky armor. I have Almighty God behind me. All I need is this piece of leather and a couple rocks. And I'm going to drop that dude. And this is why, because God is with me. And he does. Is it funny me calling, Bible characters dude, and he did. David is not the hero. God is the hero. God is the one who showed up in David's life, and he didn't even have armor on, and God supernaturally sped up that rock, and it sunk into the forehead of a 9-foot giant. No one could defeat him. And that is exactly how we stand here in this city. Our confidence is not in ourselves. Our confidence is in the Lord, for he is behind us. And I hope people would say that about us, that God is with us. It's my prayer for Legacy. I want that so bad. I want that to be the testimony in your life. Your friends, your family, people say, we're not perfect people, no doubt. But they would say about us, but God is with you, for sure. There is favor, there's something there, there's something different. Just the way you handle people and the way you pursue business and the way you do life, there's just something about you, and I'm thankful. I don't want to believe in your God yet, but I'm just thankful for you. We need that. It's the first step. It's the opportunity to minister the gospel. That's where it begins. So Abraham says, okay, it's cool. I swear I will not attack you. A pact is made. But, the big but. Yes, in the room, are you ready? Even though a pact is made, peace treaties are made. But guess what? Problems are going to arise, aren't they? This is it. From the highest level, nation to nation, lower levels, marriage, spouse to spouse, problems are going to arise. Let's promise never to do that again, I promise. And then I'm raising my voice a few minutes later, huh? Problems always break out in life. You want to know why? Wars always will break out in life. You want to know why? We need peace on the earth. It will never happen until Christ returns. You want to know why? Because there's sin in our bones. Every generation has to deal with the sin in their bones. They're born and they have to deal with their flesh. And they pursue life, and before you know it, war and battles stir up within them, and one person offends another, and before you know it, miscommunication, misunderstandings, and fights break out. And it happens in every generation, the history of man, every generation it happens, and it will continue to happen. And that's why we have to keep applying the gospel over and over and over to bring peace to our hearts. Are you ready for the misunderstanding in our text? Take a look, verse 25 and 26. Abraham rebuked Abimelech. What? Abraham goes to the king and calls him out. Hey, what are you doing? Why did he rebuke him? It says, verse 25, because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants had seized. Abraham's out there in the field, and his boys come running back to him. The text implies they seized it. So if you have to seize something, you're showing up with some weapons, okay? You're showing up and you're going to throw down and do some harm. Here are Abraham's servants standing there, and Abimelech's guys pull up and they're like, give us that well. And a fight breaks out amongst them, and they seize the well. Abraham's servants go running back to him, bloodied, who knows what, but they tell Abraham, Abimelech's men came and see, didn't we just make a peace treaty with him? Didn't they just say, we know God's with you, we're not going to do anything? And all of a sudden they do this? What's going on? So Abraham confronts Abimelech. And it says there in verse 26, Abimelech said to him, the king says to Abraham, I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, nor had I heard of it until today. That almost sounds like something taken right out of your workplace or your office place in the 21st century. I had not heard of it until today. What happened? I didn't even hear about it until just now. I don't know what you're talking about. This is classic. We promise to be nice to each other. We plan on being friends. We plan on a good understanding in relationships. And a problem breaks out. Most of the time, it's indirect things that cause problems. We weren't trying to be mean, but something happened. And here King Abimelech's servants take over the well, and the text implies again that there's conflict. Abraham is stirred up and ticked off because his boys, something happened to them out there. And he approaches them, and the king says, I didn't know anything. What do you mean? I didn't tell my guys to go seize your well, I promise. And Abraham's like, yeah, but you're the king. Like you clearly know what's going on in your land. You're the boss. How do you know it's not happening in your company? And what are you going to do to fix it? So now the question is, who's telling the truth? Did Abraham's guys standing out there by the well, like hanging out, eating their sandwiches, on break, whatever, and King Abimelech's guys come up, and one of the dudes is like obnoxious, and one of Abraham's guys like throws a rock at King Abimelech's guys as he just wants to like taunt them, right? And then King Abimelech's guy's like, what? Like, we're supposed to take this well anyways. This is on our land. Forget this. We've had enough of you guys. You're the big guys in town, and God's with you and all this stuff. Forget it, dude. We're coming after you. And then all of a sudden a fight breaks out, and they seize the well. And then Abraham's guys go back and tell Abraham, King Abimelech's guys just pulled up and took over the place. Did you guys do anything? No, sir, we would never do anything. Absolutely not. And Abraham goes to the king, and now we have the two bosses showing up to talk and trying to figure out what's going on here. This is classic. Who's telling the truth? The answer is both. Both are telling the truth if we read the text exactly as it is, but there's still a problem there, isn't there? We have parts of the truth sitting there in the text. Abimelech says, I didn't know anything about it. True. Abraham says, isn't that my well? True. So who's wrong? We see this all the time happen in families, huh? Two people get ticked off, a misunderstanding breaks out, nobody wants to take the time and the patience to figure it out, and so we just start becoming bitter at each other. Then 10 years go by, and we can't even remember the situation, why we were bitter. We just know we don't like that family member. Maybe in your workplace, this stuff happens all the time. That's why reconciliation is so important. The gospel is so important in every single one of these situations. It must be repaired. You have to allow it to be repaired. Misunderstandings with people, miscommunicating with people, these are two different things that people do all the time, and that results in more problems because no one is, here's the word, working to understand the other. Working to understand the other. Both just allow a misunderstanding to grow. The word misunderstanding, look at the breakdown of the word. Misunderstanding. The word understanding with the word mis added in front of it, there is not clarity and understanding between two people. One person or the other doesn't understand, or both don't understand. There is a lack of understanding. I don't understand. We think we do. We act like we do. I know what happened. You took my well. I know what happened. I didn't know anything about it. Point number one, if you're taking notes, is listen with grace. Listen with grace. Let's talk about misunderstanding first, okay? This has to do with listening. When you listen to a person, are you really listening, or are you just hearing them? Hearing and listening are two completely different things. Did you know that? I discovered this a little while ago. I grew up playing music and doing bands and stuff and jamming with my dad and just brother. Just loved it. And I noticed this about radio songs, that I never listened to lyrics. Like Katie and I were listening to a 90s, it was like a 90s hits playlist like just a couple days ago. And I noticed that I knew all the songs, but I didn't actually know the words. I didn't know the lyrics. So it's almost like every word that comes out when someone is singing it, it sounds like a note to me. So it's just another part of the song. So the entire song is something I hear, but not something I listen to or fully understand. I don't get the meaning of the song. I just like the way it sounds. And that's the way my ears work with music a lot of times. I hear the music and the piece first, then I learn the lyrics and the meaning of it long term. University of Minnesota did a study on this, and they broke it down this way. They said, do you think there is a difference between hearing and listening? You are right. There is. Hearing is simply the act of perceiving sound by the ear. If you are not hearing impaired, Hearing simply happens. Listening, however, is something you consciously choose to do. Listening requires concentration so that your brain processes meaning from words and sentences. Listening leads to learning. This is key. Real listening, and not just hearing, real listening leads to learning. Now, if we are not learning in the conversation, we are not listening. We are just hearing. Most people tend to be hard of listening rather than hard of hearing. Right? You hard of hearing? No, I'm hard of listening. When you listen to someone, are you learning more about what they are trying to say to you? If not, you aren't truly listening, you're just hearing. You don't really want to understand them and their point of view. Why they are doing, saying, or believing what they are. You don't really want to know. And when you are talking or arguing or discussing with someone, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, am I listening to learn their full perspective? And if you're not, you're really just wasting time. Are you hearing them and thinking through what you are going to say next? Preparing the rebuttal? That's not listening either. You're hearing. Did you hear what I said? I heard exactly what you said. Actually, I'll repeat it exactly to you, we say. But we're not actually fully listening to them because we are preparing a response to tear down what they're saying. The best thing that you could do after someone says something to you is bring a question back to them to affirm that you fully understand what they've said. Then prepare your rebuttal so that you respond to exactly what they're saying. Why respond to something they're not saying? You dismiss them. They're not listening to you now. And you're not winning them. James chapter 1, verse 19, the Apostle James writes, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." God has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Double the listening than the talking. We should be more prone to listen. Notice James does not say, please, we should be quick to hear. He uses the word listen. So, do you listen to meaning or to surface words? You listen to meaning or to surface words? Well, you said this. I didn't mean that. We have to get to the heart of the meaning, don't we? We even have to do this with the Word of God. Do you know that cults do this all the time? They take the surface of the text, they don't understand its context or the culture or the history or the author, and they just start pulling things out, and they can build all kinds of crazy ideas. Like, Solomon had 1,000 wives, why can't I? Because God said to all of the kings, you shall not multiply in women. Didn't you look at that part of the Bible too? The Bible says you can't tattoo your body. Well, did you read the next verse? It says you can't shave the sides of your head either. Someone's in sin. Should probably understand what culture he's writing to and why he's writing it. Meaning is so important. You should never open the Bible and say, let the wind blow and let the Lord show me something. And you read it and it says, and Judas hung himself. You're like, Let me try this again. Put it in the wind. Let's try a second. Lord, show me. The wind blows and now go and do likewise. What? We need to understand meaning. We do this when we read books. We're trying to understand the heart of the text. We need to do this with people. You need to understand the heart of the person. Please, please, please listen to people. People who bug me the most are those who love to misunderstand others. They don't listen to a person's heart. They hear and respond as if they haven't listened to a thing the person is even saying, just trying to win an argument. I think my complex develops in me because I used to do this to people, and sometimes still do. choose not to listen, but just to make my point. Talk to my wife. I need to grow. I need my ears to get larger, Head to get smaller, ears larger, right? To really just listen. And that's the question. People really love to misunderstand each other because it makes them feel better about the fact they don't like the person. For a person to willingly misunderstand another is to enable themselves to feel justified that what the person is saying is wrong. We love that. We love to catch them in our own mind saying, see, they don't know what they're talking about, because it makes us feel good in our flesh. Even if they might not be making that point, we'll gravitate towards it, we'll grab onto it, so it makes us feel better about all that we know, but we totally misunderstood them. A classic example is when a person says, I didn't mean that, and the person says, well, that's what you said. We need to listen, really try to listen to what a person is meaning, not just saying. No one has perfect English. And we need to listen to each other's hearts and stop trying to win an argument. It gets both parties nowhere. I looked this up. I thought it was a bit funny. I tried to do it for guys, but it didn't work. It wasn't as funny. So ladies, I'm sorry. I should have threw the guys under. But things girls say versus what they mean. Are you ready? Strap on your seatbelts. Number one, what they say, I'm not hungry right now. What they actually mean, I'm not hungry right now, but I wouldn't say no to food. I just don't want to seem like I'm a pig or anything. If you start eating, I'll join you. What they say, I have nothing to wear, what they actually mean, I have so many things to wear, it's overwhelming, right? What they say, I don't care where we go to eat. What they actually mean, I care a lot about where we go to eat and actually have some very specific preferences about where we need to go. When they say, oh my gosh, look over there. They actually mean there's a cat in the windowsill over there, right? It's just a cat. They scream bloody murder, like, oh gosh, I can't believe it. It's a cute dog coming towards them, right? When they say, you don't know my birthday, they actually mean I'm going to cut you right now, okay? I tried to do it for guys and it just wasn't as funny, but guys are kind of blockheads. They kind of stand around in a circle, kick dirt a little bit, and say, what do you want to do? Oh, you want to go get a burger? Okay, cool, let's go. That's it. That's the depth of that's as deep as it goes. Ladies are multidimensional. They have layers to communication that guys will never understand. But we have to work at it, brothers. We have to rise to their level and understand what they're saying, what they mean. Some people are very clear and precise. Others are unclear and indirect. And it takes a lot of questioning and listening to figure out what exactly they are saying. And a lot of the way a person communicates and the language they use has to do with their personality, right? It really has a lot to do with that. And I know this takes a lot of great patience. But brothers especially, we have got to do this. The Bible says, grow with your wives in an understanding manner. For she is co-heir with you in the kingdom. And if you do not understand her, guess what? The text says, God will not listen to your prayers. You don't listen to your wife, I'm not listening to you. And this is very scary. My watch is telling me it's very scary. Of course, God hears all prayers, but it doesn't mean he's going to work in your prayers. Brothers, it's a word for us. I've been married just about 8 years now, and I'm seriously just, again, starting to wake up to this. I was telling Thane out at the coffee table just how blind I've been over the years, where I think I am actually genuinely listening. The word blind is the right word, because it's when you literally 100% can't see you're wrong. You convinced yourself that you actually are doing it correct. But over and over, my wife trying to tell me, like, listen to me. And that means, reading a book this last week, that means it's a man who listened to his wife for 17 years, but he always gave her an answer about how to fix it, and she wanted to leave him. And the guy was pointing out, the therapist was pointing out that all she wanted was just someone to sympathize and empathize with her, not give an answer every time. And when you have a headache sometimes, you don't want somebody to start challenging you. Well, like, well, what'd you eat yesterday? And, did you take your Advil? And you're like, no, I have a headache, It's just a little bit of complaining, but I just want you to say, gosh, I'm sorry. I know it's a bummer to have a headache. I hate when that happens. You want someone to understand you. And this miscommunication is happening again in relationship, it's happening in friendships, it's happening in the workplace, it's happening all over, but we've got to listen with grace. God listens to you. He's an amazing, gracious King that hears all the prayers on the earth over and over and over again for thousands of years. Think about the complaints. God sends him to the complaint department. He is the complaint department. He is the human resources. Point number 2, speak with grace. Listen with grace. Speak with grace. Is that biblical? Oh, baby. Colossians chapter 4, verse 6, Paul says verbatim, let your speech always be gracious. And he throws a little picture on there. I love it. Seasoned with salt. When you put a little salt on that watermelon or that steak or that whatever it is you like, that potato, that little bit of extra salt on the fries. You don't pour the whole thing over it. That's salty and nasty. But a little bit of salt, and this is what he says, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. How to answer them. Let your speech always be with grace. The same is true with miscommunication. We love to miscommunicate to one another. And it is the sin in us that fuels the desire to communicate in ways that doesn't help the person we're talking to. How do we do this? We talk over them. We stonewall them. We interrupt them. We use words they don't understand. We speak in circles around them. We will veer off into a part of the conversation that they're not getting, and just to make our point and prove ourselves right. We speak to things they aren't saying and speak in ways that aren't helpful to learning from them or from learning from each other. We just want to make our point and bail. The height of this, the pinnacle of this is on the freeway. Somebody cuts you off and you roll down the window. You're like, rolling back up, baby. You're not saying anything. So I want to make my point and bail. I want to communicate wrongly and I want to bail. I'm not going to let you say anything back because I don't want a conversation. I just want to hear myself speak. If you go to Paris, France, and you just expect the French to know English, you know what they'll do? They'll look at you kindly and just turn away. You're not even going to attempt. You come into my little quiet town and you're not even going to attempt to say something in French, like hospitality, like just attempt. And then watch this. If you attempt, they will kindly start speaking very clear English. You're like, oh wow, you knew English the whole time. They're like, yeah, I get it, and I'm thankful that you're trying, and you're not being a rude American. But there is a joint agreement there, isn't there? That both would try to communicate in each other's language to get somewhere. And gosh, we need to do this in this society. Both just speak indirectly around each other and up and over, and your side this and my side that, and I ain't got any time to think through your situation. But if you actually sat and listened, you would probably come to the foundation of your problems and realize, wow, there really is something in there that there is truthful about. There's truth in there. I'm just not fully understanding them. Didn't Dale Carnegie say that? How to Win Friends, Influence People? Like the beginning of winning someone and understanding someone is understanding where they're coming from, and that determines how you respond to them. Can I take it a step further? You speak to a 3-year-old differently than you speak to a 50-year-old, differently than you speak to a 90-year-old. You don't walk up to a 50-year-old grown man and say, oh, baby, come here, how you doing? Oh, you're so cute. Like, what's wrong with you? You better get away from me. We use different tones, we use different pictures, we use different depths. We use different illustrations. We want them to understand. We're trying to understand their context and how they think so we can communicate. We get down on the baby's level and we use the simple tones and words that they might understand. Why wouldn't we do that with other people? Why do we just expect them to know our language? We take it a step further. You don't speak to men in the same way you speak to women. They both have different languages, tones, and all the rest. You don't believe me? Just get married. You will discover very quickly that you guys speak a different language. You'll hear couples say all the time, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. And they didn't. But you thought they did. And that's the dilemma. We need grace. We got to listen with grace. We need to speak with grace. If you want to relate to people, you have to practice talking to lots of different people, listening to lots of different people. Good listening will produce great communicating. Never forget, Pastor Greg told me when I was asking him, how do I become a good preacher? I just want to be a good preacher. How do I do that? He said, preach in every and any context you can. Go preach to the babies. Go preach to the senior citizens, country club. Go preach at that funeral. Go do that wedding. Go do anything and everything you can. Junior hires, oh man, not easy. You keep their attention for like 4 minutes and then they're like, okay, is that it? I'm out of here. But it grows your ability. So if you're not a good listener, you will never be a great communicator. Actions don't always speak louder than words. I love this quote. Did you know that? Actions don't always speak louder than words. Your words can undo everything you do. Someone said, Lord, make my words gracious and tender, for tomorrow I may have to eat them. You see, when you throw sin into all of this, you have people who love to miscommunicate to each other, to win an argument, and sway the conversation one way or the other, attacking things the other person isn't saying, and this creates great problems. Charles Haddon Spurgeon, the great preacher, said, tongues are more terrible instruments than can be made with hammers and anvils. And the evil which they inflict cuts deeper and spreads wider. You take a sledgehammer to some concrete to bust it up, you're going to do some damage. But if you say one or just a couple words, you just put a sentence of 5 words together and you speak it to someone, you could destroy their whole heart and their whole mind for a decade. James says the tongue is like a fire, like a match. He says one little thing you say, you could just throw it into a forest and burn the whole place down. He says it's like a rudder of a ship, a giant boat, and it can turn everything. I was reading a book this last week that talked about these words of affirmation and the importance of words, and how to a detriment, you felt it before when the coach rips you off the field or out of the game and lines you up in front of everybody and screams at you for what you did wrong and embarrasses you in front of everyone. Those quick words, those quick sharp words that cut them down and criticize, it buries your heart. You feel about this small. I think it was Mark Twain who said, a few compliments can carry me for 2 months. Some kind, gracious words, speaking with grace to people, how it lifts them. I like it, you like it too. We enjoy it. So why wouldn't we handle people with the same grace? Please be quick to listen. Listen to learn. Be very slow to speak. Think about what you are going to say before you say it. Is it helpful? Think about whether or not it's appropriate and whether or not it will help a person or hurt a person. Is it going to help the conversation or destroy it? Proverbs 14:29 says, whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly. Proverbs 17:27, the one who has knowledge uses words with restraint. Is that good or what? And whoever has understanding is even-tempered. So what's the answer to misunderstanding, point number 1, and miscommunicating? Listen with grace, speak with grace, or the title of the sermon, please always show grace. Aren't you happy that God hasn't dealt with us the way that we deal with others? He would have shut us down a long time ago, huh? You'd have been picking up the phone to call him. He's like, I'm sorry, got time, I'm sorry. I'm not listening to you. But he is a gracious king. There's a huge issue before us. Neither parties think they are in the wrong. Abraham and Abimelech, one stole a well and the other one says, I didn't know anything about it. Or thinks he stole a well and the other doesn't know anything about it. Abraham's servants are hurt and his well is messed up. And so what does Abraham do? Are you ready? Verse 27, so Abraham started a war. No. Abraham took off his glove and backhanded the king. No. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech. And two of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 70 lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech asked Abraham, what was the meaning of these 7 lambs which you have given to me? Why are you doing this? Abraham says, I'm giving it to you to let you know I really did dig the well. It really does belong to me. Here is a peace offering to you. Did you see what just happened? Did Abraham have to do this? No. But he chose to do it. He chose to make peace. Abraham sacrificed in the relationship. He bit the bullet and brought forth some gifts to make peace. But the king's servants were the one who did wrong. True. Abraham was the bigger person and chose to show grace rather than argue and punish. But wait, there's more. Are you ready? Abraham takes it a step further and blesses the king with 7 more lambs just as a gift, letting him know, I promise I actually did dig the well. It really does belong to me. But here's some more. I just want to let you know everything's cool. Who does this? Listen, you want to make peace with someone? Someone needs to sacrifice. Someone needs to bend. Someone needs to break. Someone needs to show grace. This is the key. Notice Abraham not only showed mercy, he let it go and forgave, but then he showed grace. He blessed him. He took it a step further, and this is what God does for us. Where did Abraham learn this from? Is he just a great guy? No. Abraham was a Gentile. He was a pagan, came from a pagan family. He worshiped the moon god, and God saved him and made him the father of the Jewish faith. God showed him grace in his life, and that's where Abraham learned it and now is pouring it on others. Point number 3, and finally, I'm thankful God is always gracious to me. Can you imagine? Were we not the ones who caused the issues with sin? Were we not the ones who messed up the relationship with God? So who should have to be the one to pay back who? Shouldn't we be paying God? God says, I will make full payments. Wait, should I chip in like $10 or something for the bill? No. My son's blood's going to cover the whole thing. You don't get to pay anything. You just simply believe me at my word and I give you everything up front. You're like, that almost sounds too good to be true. That sounds like a gift I don't even know if I can receive. And he's like, yeah, I'm not only going to give you that gift, I'm going to build a relationship with you, and we're going on this journey forever. You're going to be with me, and I'm never going to leave you. And I'm going to keep pouring honor and favor and grace and blessings on you all the days of your life. It will never stop. But Lord, I did that again. I know. And my son Jesus paid the bill for it. Already paid for. Look to the cross. His grace pours and pours and pours and pours and pours. And you say, it sounds way too good to be true. I know. I think the same sometimes. Like, Lord, why are you still blessing me? Like, Lord, you have done enough grace in my life. It's like there's just way too much. You step back and say, you maybe need to turn off the faucet here sometimes. I don't deserve that. Romans 5:6, when we were utterly helpless, Christ came at just the right time and died for us sinners. Are you ready? Most people, Paul writes, would be willing to die for an upright person. Like they're pretty good. Someone might perhaps be willing to die for a person who is especially good. You're like, you know what? That person's a pretty good person. Maybe I'd die for them. I'd jump in front of a bullet. But that person, they're exceptional. They are awesome. I mean, one of the best people in town. I love this person. I definitely die for them. Are you ready? But God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us while we were still sinners. The worst people. Jesus died for you on your worst day, not your best day. He blessed you on your best day. He blessed you on your worst day, and he blessed you on your best day. You get a 2-for-1. But the point being, he blessed you on your worst day. We don't do that as humans, do we? Somebody wrongs you, I'm not going to bless you. James 4:6, he gives more grace. More and more and more and more and more and more and more, and it's got to stop one day. And he says, nope, it's never going to stop. 2 Corinthians 5:19, are you ready? For God was in Christ, reconciling the world to himself, no longer counting people's sins against them. He lets it go. I do not count your sin against you, God says. What? But I'm guilty, I know, and I'm letting you go free forever. No, at some point I got to pay for this stuff. Again, my son paid for everything. And he gave us this wonderful message of reconciliation. Psalm 84:11, for the Lord God is a sun and shield. The Lord bestows favor and honor. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly. Listen, because God pours nonstop grace and mercy and forgiveness upon us all the days of our life, it should motivate us not to keep sinning, but to run away from sin and to run to him and to start loving and serving people, showing them forgiveness and grace here in this city. That's my prayer for Legacy. People would see God in you, his grace in you. And so, when someone cuts you off, try to show them grace. I dare you. Person pulls up, gives you the birdie. You roll down your window like with a mean face, right? Love you, man. Have a great day. He's like, what? You chase him down. You pull him over. You act like you're gonna fight with him. Hey, man, I want to give you a Starbucks gift card, man. God bless you. We'll see ya. Oh. When someone talks bad about you, try showing them grace. When someone doesn't pay you back the money they owe you, try showing them grace. When someone doesn't fulfill your expectations, try showing them grace. When someone drops the ball in your life, try showing them grace. When someone sins against you, try showing them grace. And when someone persecutes you, try showing them grace. Romans 12:14, bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse them. Your enemy. Jesus says if someone steals your coat, steals your purse, give them your coat. If somebody wants to go 1 mile, go with them 2. Why in the world should we do this to people? Because God has always shown us grace, and he's never going to stop. That's what motivated Abraham to do this to the king. He could have pulled the Yoda on him. He could have leveled the joint. We're going to war. He says, no, I'm going to give him a peace offering. God has given us the greatest peace offering in the history of man. It's his son Jesus. He is the peace offering. He has made peace between God and man. And we have the opportunity to come to him. Amen?